Welcome to the Gooder Podcast. I'm your host, Diana Frike. Thanks for joining us today. As partner and CMO of Retail Voodoo, an award-winning branding agency, I have met and worked with some of the most amazing women in the naturals industry, food, beverage, wellness, and fitness. As such, I decided to create the Gooder Podcast to interview these great people and subject matter experts and have them share their insights, expertise, passions to help all businesses around the world become gooder. And today we get to welcome Ashley Hartman, Senior Principal at Bluestein Ventures, a family-backed venture capital fund that invests in the future of food. Yay. She has extensive experience leading growth strategy and establishing scalable infrastructure necessary to build sustainable ventures, honing those skills throughout her time running and scaling her family's business, working on new ventures at Coinstar, and her experience in financial consulting. Sorry about that. She's also active in the Chicago food community and serves on the selection committee and associates board of the Good Food Accelerator and is a mentor at the Food Foundry and the Hatchery. Hey, the Hatchery, yo. I spoke to Natalie recently. I like them. They're good people. Hi, Ashley. How are you today?
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's so fun to chat with you.
Of course. How's Chicago? You cold today? You warm today? What's the day?
It is 50 degrees and sunny, and it's the end of November, so I cannot complain.
Okay. And I think the last time we spoke, it was colder. Like you guys are kind of doing, that's why I'm saying, is it hot or cold today?
I know. I mean, I can't take any day that's above 50 in November for granted. So definitely walk outside, and I've been trying to enjoy the weather because you never know how long it's going to last.
All right. Right. Well, so let's talk about Bluestein Ventures. You guys are not new. There was a little bit of a rebrand. So, let's just kind of do a little quick level set. Who's Bluestein? What do you guys do? What's your expertise? What are you all about?
Yeah, happy to share. So Bluestein Ventures is a family-backed venture capital fund. As you mentioned in the intro, we invest in the future of food. And we invest in the food industry across the value chain. So we do both B2B and B2C.
Okay.
And we focus on 4 key areas. So we have high growth consumer brands. So that's probably most relevant for your audience. Then we have next gen commerce, which is really how consumers get food in this new omnichannel world. The third area we focus on is proprietary food tech. So that's heavy IP-based solutions that are kind of real future of food.
Okay.
Longer timeline, higher CapEx requirements. And then the last area we focus on is digital technology that powers the industry. So that covers restaurant technology, logistics technology, supply chain technology, marketing technology.
Okay.
So we invest in the early stage. So we invest between seed and Series A. And today we have 23 companies in our portfolio that program it across the whole supply chain. On the CPG side, we have Vive Organic, which is a 2-ounce wellness shot. Base Culture, which is a grain-free baked good company. We have Your Bay. They're a enhanced caffeinated sparkling water brand based on yerba mate. We have Disney, which is a cold brew coffee platform. Rethink, which is a kids packaged water and juice brand. And then we have Buddy Nutrition, which is a personalized protein powder. And our last one on the CPG side is Real, which is a sustainable toilet paper brand.
Oh.
Never thought, toilet paper was going to be sexy until 2020. Who knew?
Who knew? And it's crazy. In social media, apparently, when stores are running out of product and people are buying DC, it's all about, accessibility. And there's some crazy, not just technology wise, everything from bamboo based to recycled content, et cetera, but it's getting fun and funky out there with the toilet paper. It's crazy.
I know. I never knew that this was going to be a really fascinating industry. And I've learned a lot about it in 2020.
Oh, right. And then and you throw in moist toilet tissue, MTT, and it's just bigger and wider and wider. It's crazy. Yeah. I want to ask you a quick question. You guys specifically focus on companies and brands that are between seed and Series A. That's very, very specific. Is that because of expertise, or is there a little bit of passion? Do you like that type of client because you like where they are in their headspace?
Yeah. So it's a combination of both. So when we were thinking about how you kind of build your portfolio, we noticed that there wasn't a lot of capital within that space.
Okay.
Institutional capital. We wanted to come in and really provide that, and thought we could create a good niche there.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, it's really fun. I mean, like really fun to get a dig in there. There's companies have kind of a little bit of traction. They're kind of getting to product market fit. And we might get into this a little later, but our lens on the world is how do we help you with your strategy? And that's kind of what we feel like is our competitive advantage. So we'd like to help our portfolio companies scale. And from that seed to Series A stage, it's really an exciting time because you've got such limited resources. Both, we think of it in terms of financial capital and also time. Your time is the most valuable.
Yes.
And so like to help our portfolio companies try to get to what we call product market fit. And that is, that critical part from seed to Series A where we feel like we can add the most value.
Yeah. Well, what I find, because we work with, of course, clients of all sizes as well. And what I love about that specific stage myself is that you're getting involved and you're coaching somebody along before they start making decisions that they have to unravel, or it's something that they fall in love with that's not sustainable in the future. You're getting right at a good time, and they're open to the feedback. They don't have their heels dug in about it's got to be this way. I really feel like it's kind of an open, it's just a much more open set of dialogues. Like you're not hitting anybody in a crisis. You're hitting somebody at opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. And we like to partner with you along your journey. So with capital, it's not that interesting to us, but if we can actually help you think through how you're going to get to the next stage, that's like a lot more fun. We like when things aren't as figured out because it is that green field and you can dig in and understand kind of what the challenges are. You can get alignment. You can really kind of build from the ground up. And hopefully, as you mentioned, you're building the right strategy so you can get ahead of issues that might have come up later.
Yeah. So this kind of naturally leads to this next question. I know I think that focus, or the POV, is Bluestein focuses and advises your portfolio founders through the lens of strategy. So tell me a little bit more about what that means, or did we already cover that?
Happy to tell you a little bit more about how we kind of dig in there. So we like to think about go-to-market strategy, and that's thinking through how you get to product market fit. And we like to help our portfolio companies really dive into their strategy and make sure that every piece of the business is aligned and integrated. So that you are, really defining what that strategy is for the future. And so we think of strategy in three kind of buckets. The first is your vision. So that's what is your vision, your value proposition, opportunity, the customer you're going after, how you're going to differentiate in the market. The second is your playbook. So that's kind of how do you build a really economically attractive growth engine to enable you to capitalize on your vision. So that's sales and marketing strategy. That's your economic model. That's kind of what product you're going out with. And then the third piece is what we call your engine, which is the team. And that's how you're going to really build your team to enable you to execute on your playbook to realize your vision. So those are kind of the three things that we think about when we think about strategy and getting you to product market fit. Because as we think about it, if you have all three of those together, and we give you, and then you go raise capital, that capital just fuels growth. That's what we want companies to get to.
So interesting, because in our work, we're setting clients up from that perspective as well, but the way we're entering into it isn't from necessarily a fund perspective or funding model perspective. But what I love is like the absolute alignment. It is not common for me to meet somebody at a VC or from an investment standpoint that sees the value proposition from a brand positioning standpoint to be just as critical as operationally, how are you going to be set up so that once you start scaling, you can meet the demand and things don't fall apart. So it's really wonderful to see that. And and it must be, I'm sure that things are starting to move in that direction from an investment standpoint. So I love hearing that. And it must be fun to look at it from a bigger standpoint from your perspective as well, or your team's perspective, and that you're not just looking at the charts and graphs and how do you sell, or, what's your sales funnel look like, or your sales strategy, or, how do we scale you X, Y, and Z. So I like that. Now let's talk a little bit about the market right now. And specifically, I wanted to be talking about from like the investment standpoint. I have conversations with people every week, and kind of the big joke of 2020 for some of those brands that are going through funding that were not already in conversation before COVID hit is not being able to find the groups where they can't find the VCs is very hard. And some organizations like Nosh are starting to put together panels where there can be some meetups. But how are firms like yours finding brands that you can support now? Are you doing your own efforts? Are you doing them through third parties?
Yeah, we try to triangulate the market in all ways. And so nothing's really changed in our world. It's just shifted to digital. So, I think that's kind of the story of 2020, right? And so we are generally finding investments in the same way, and that's through our network.
Okay.
So our network is really our most powerful ally in generating growth. And so we co-invest. And so we look for kind of our like-minded collaborator co-investors to kind of bring us deals. We bring them deals. We kind of all collaborate and try to find new deals. So that's one way. And then the second way is, the conference world has gone digital this year. And so we've shifted along with that. So we do a ton of, pitch events, conferences, whether it's, I know Bev, you mentioned BevNet and Nosh, they've done a bunch of great kind of investor speed dating and pitch events. Then there's Food Bites, Nutritional Capital Network. There's a whole host of resources that I think brands can leverage to go out there for funding. It's not, easy. You probably have to have a lot more conversations than maybe you were expecting.
Gotcha.
But I think there are resources available. You just have to kind of seek them out a little bit more.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that with this virtual world has opened up, I think, more geographies. So even like the past few months, we've started talking to a few companies that were in Europe, and that it hasn't been on our radar at all. And it probably wouldn't have happened if COVID hadn't happened and we weren't all virtual. And so I'd encourage, brands to think outside the box and find investors.
That's so interesting. So as I'm listening to you talk, I'm also thinking, well, maybe it's still maybe people need to be utilizing their network a little bit more and asking a little bit more, where should I go? How can I find potential financial partners? But then maybe it sounds like you guys are finding even more opportunities, because without having to travel, you can actually attend more events quite literally on a weekly basis.
Yeah, 100%. I actually, it's funny because my days are, more stacked now because I don't have any breathing room between Zoom meetings. Whereas before you couldn't fit as much in during the day with travel, moving around, going to work, going home. So I've actually noticed that we're fitting a lot more in, and our deal flow has been, I think our statistics are like at least 30% higher this year than they were last year. And I think that is a function of just having everything stacked in the day.
Yeah. So this might be a permanent model change.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I don't know I think it'll be interesting to see how the hybrid model works. And I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that as well. Because I think it works if you're all virtual, and it works if you're all in person, but I'm not sure how the hybrid is going to work.
Well, yeah. And I think partly, a lot of people joke about trade shows and there are a lot of money and there's a thing, the time investment. Uh, However, I think humans still are kind of pack animal-y ish. And and we're also highly adaptable. So for the time being, Zoom works really, really well. I think that I think it'll probably eventually go to far more in person back when it becomes safe to do that, because there's something about shaking somebody's hand and having a lunch or a quick 5-minute session in the hallway with somebody you haven't seen in a year or two, or whatever. Those things, I think those are just innate anthropological components of human nature. So I'll be curious too to see how it works. I think people say they desire this Zoom thing, but I can tell you at the end of the week of infinite number of screen sessions, the last thing I want to do is be on a screen. I like check out.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And then it's how energizing is it today when you do end up meeting someone outside?
Yeah.
And you come home and you're like, you're on a high because
I saw Sam. Oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. Yes, absolutely. Yes. And the dog park opportunities is where I get to interact with people. But do you feel like the types of opportunities that are being brought to you guys now are different than they were before? And I'll preface it by saying this. I wonder how many people who were affected by COVID hunkered down, started coming up with this, putting together ideas that have been maybe floating in the back of their mind for a couple of years or a couple of months even, or people who just can't sit still and wait for the market to change, and like ideas are coming faster and faster. Or is it kind of just more of the same, just a different format?
Yeah, we found it's such a good question, but we found that mostly everything's been the same in terms of opportunities. So we invest at such an early stage that we're investing in long-term trends. So we joked, and we continue to joke that the trends we were betting on happening 5 years from now happened in 8 weeks because everything just accelerated.
Yeah.
With the pandemic and shifting human behavior. I'm sure there'll be a shift kind of back, but that's been kind of just the same as what we've been looking at before, because we bet on these long-term trends, and these trends are now realized. They're here. Grocery delivery is here.
Yes, right.
More and more consumers are going to adopt it and sustain and stay with it over time. So those things have just been kind of same old for us. And then we've also, on our side, we focus a lot on building sustainable companies. So because we're a family office, we want to be with the company for the long term. We want to build long-term sustainable companies. And so we focus a lot on cash efficiency, and we always have.
Gotcha.
I think that's been more important for a lot more companies, though, since the pandemic hit, because there's just so much uncertainty in the market.
Yes.
I'm pleased to see that a lot more companies are thinking about building kind of sustainable unit economics early, thinking about how they can conserve cash. And I think that builds you up to be a more sustainable company over the long term. So I think that's really the benefit.
Okay. I feel like I'm going to ask all of these questions about is this different? Is this different? And I almost want to kind of go, well, it's different and the same, right? Your process. Maybe we could talk a little bit about your partnership and the process. Have you typically in the past, once you engage with them and bring a client on, do you see them as partners or clients, or how do you talk about them?
We talk about our entrepreneurs, our portfolio companies, our founders.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So your companies or your founders, is the process a little bit different? Did you guys used to be a little bit more hands-on, like meeting face to face, or has it always just been a kind of a distance model?
It's been a hybrid of both. So we invest across the US, and so we can't have as many touch points in person anyway, but we definitely have thought more about, moving things virtual and whether this can actually work long term. I think, some of the companies that we used to travel for board meetings, and maybe maybe Zoom works for board meetings, 3 board meetings out of the year, and we only need to travel for 1 board meeting.
Okay.
And so we're definitely thinking through kind of what is necessary in terms of travel versus in person. But, the partnership itself has remained the same. It's just the form of that has changed.
Yeah. Mm. Well, we've talked a little bit about process and, how you guys do things and how things are different, but maybe let's talk a little bit about what a good fit typically looks like for Bluestein.
Sure. Happy to talk about what we look for.
Yeah.
So we have, different criteria we look at to evaluate companies, and we have kind of a scorecard that we use, and we use that against all companies so that we can be consistent with how we're evaluating companies. And so we have, really 7 criteria on the scorecard, but at a macro level, and I think I touched on this earlier, but we invest early. So what we look for is really, can this company get to product market fit? And so when we think about, okay, well, what does product market fit mean? We think of it as a combination of really 3 things. One of that is there a significant market opportunity? So is there a large, achievable, addressable market? Okay. Is there an attractive customer base that you're going after? And then is this market winnable based on your kind of value proposition? So that's kind of the first bucket we lump things in. And then the second one is, do you have an economically attractive growth engine? So do you have a product that delivers on what customers want? Do you have strong organic and inorganic customer retention and acquisition? And then do you have a scalable unit economic model? So that's kind of the second bucket we put things in. And then the third bucket is, do you have organizational excellence? That's what we call it. So do you have an emerging A team? Do you have core capabilities that, you're going to be able to start building on over time? And then do you have a plan to kind of scale your team? And you don't have to have everything thought out immediately.
Sure.
But that's kind of, those are the certain criteria we look for when we think, can this company get to product market fit? And so then if I drill down, kind of reading between the lines of your question, if I'm talking about a brand, what jumps out at us and what we're really looking for when we're investing in brands is, can this brand either be a category definer or a category leader? So for example, we invested in Vive Organic, which is a 2-ounce wellness shot. And when we invested, the shot category in retail didn't exist. Like, there was no market size category in retail. So there was nothing really to evaluate on the market side. But what we invested in was really investing behind them being able to define the category and put that, make Vive almost synonymous with the shot category. And we've been, incredibly proud of how the team has executed along that. But they really became the category definer. And then if I look at kind of a Yerba, which is a caffeinated sparkling water brand based on yerba mate, sparkling water was already a category, but we bet on Yerba because we do believe that they can lead that category and be that enhanced sparkling water brand, even though the category was already kind of defined.
It's interesting when I think about, these categories and this, these good fits, because sometimes, and I don't know if I'm going to couch this question correctly, but sometimes there's a coachability that you have to be able to judge, right? And sometimes it's hard to see that coming in, like, okay, these guys look great, the numbers look great, the category looks great, we see an opportunity. Can this team be coachable? Are they going to be okay with bad news? Is that something that you guys are leading into, or do you guys kind of have enough experience or are comfortable with, okay, so if something was to get a little bit rocky, like, you have the bandwidth and the wherewithal to take them through that, or you know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of a big businessy kind of question. Like, do I like these people as one part? And then can we coach them through as another part? Is that part of the criteria?
Oh my God, yes. So, I mean, we are betting on the entrepreneur or entrepreneur. Like, we have to have supreme confidence in you And it's not only about you and your capabilities, you and your self-awareness, your coachability, your ability to attract good people around you. And that definitely comes down to a judgment call. And we evaluate that based on kind of pattern recognition and whether we connect with you too. Like, do we feel like when we're having our conversations in diligence, that we are aligned in how we think the business should go and you think the business should go? When we provide kind of questions or feedback, are you accepting of that, or do you push back on us? And so we have to kind of judge those cues through our relationship development. For diligencing the investment. But this all comes back to the founders and the entrepreneurs, because this is a journey and we want to partner with you and we want you to partner with us too.
Yeah, we've run into that as well too, right? You were like, okay, can we coach these people through change? Do they want to be coached through change? It's a big one.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a marriage. You're dating, you're getting married, and you're gonna be together for a few years.
Oh, yes.
So, it has to be right on both sides.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about those entrepreneurs. Is there some sort of consistent set of questions or concerns, or I guess I'll just start with that the brands come in the door with? Do you consistently find that because they're in the space that they're in, these are usually the hurdles or the questions that they're coming in with?
I think it depends on the different businesses and slightly different stage and how their businesses are developing. So there isn't really one set of questions. I think when brands come to us, a lot of times questions we get are, I think a lot of brands are curious, how do we evaluate investment opportunities? What makes a good investment? And often, if we pass, why we passed. I think a lot of brands are kind of curious around that. And so we try to be very detailed in our feedback and open and transparent in how we're looking at things.
Gotcha.
And then the second thing is, a lot of brands come into the question of like, how can you help me? What do you bring to the table? Which is good. You should want your investors to bring something to the table.
Yes.
So we talk about kind of how do we get alignment around strategy, and what are we want to know what your key challenges are so we can see if we can be helpful. And so I think those are kind of the two questions that we most often get.
And when you're evaluating brands, I know there are a number, of course, because the opportunities outnumber what you can actually invest in. But what are the, I don't know if there's common outage that, or stage, something that happens in pre-stage, people are coming to you and you're like, yeah, this is the common outage that people come into this conversation with, that will say, come back to us in a year, or come back to us when you've solved this. Is there something common, or are there big 3 buckets, or is it just kind of across the board?
Yeah, I think what we like to see is that you've thought through the integration of those 3 buckets, and you don't have to have everything again thought out today. You don't have to have every piece of your business together. We invest in the early stage. We're very comfortable with a lot of pieces missing and a lot of pieces. But what I want brands to think through deeply is their go-to-market strategy, and why their go-to-market strategy, what makes you unique. So you can't just copy and paste from another brand. It's really about those integration points. So how does your vision connect to how you're going to market with your kind of, as I deemed it, their playbook? And then how are you going to win in the market? And then how do you set the organization up for success? Enable you to go capitalize on that. And then what we like to see is, are you asking the right questions? Like, as an investor, I don't need you to know everything when you come to me, but what questions are you trying to answer? If I give you money, and if I give you kind of time and resources, what are you trying to go use that capital to answer, so that you can flow that back in your business and make your kind of strategy and growth plan stronger? Those are kind of the areas that I like to see brands think through, or they come for investment, and that gives me comfort that when I'm investing, as we were talking about, in the entrepreneur, that they're asking the right questions, that they're thinking things through deeply, that they really do have that strategy for scale, and they're going to be able to measure and pivot along the way, and that they're not just copying and pasting their strategy from another brand. Like, I'm going to go do what RX Bar did on, going to gyms because it worked for RX Bar. Well, why would that work for your company and not, don't just think about it from kind of that looks like it was successful for this other brand. So I can give you an example with kind of Vive Organic. When they came to us, as I mentioned, they were building a category that didn't really exist. So when they launched, they had the challenge of going to build that category and in their consumer base. And so what they did was they started out very locally, just in Southern California. And they went through coffee shops. And so they stuck their product in a bowl in the coffee shop, right at the checkout counter with ice in the bowl. And so it was a really complementary product, and they were able to complement what the coffee shop was already offering, give them more revenue, and also develop a strong consumer base that didn't exist when they were launching. And so then they launched in retail. And when they launched in retail, they launched very, very locally. So only in Southern California. But because they had built their brand through coffee shops, when they launched in retail, the product kind of flew off the shelf. Because everyone already knew what it was. And so they didn't go take every growth opportunity at every distribution point and go to blow out the brand before they knew what worked. They developed this playbook that worked with their product, that worked with their capabilities as a team. And then they kind of developed this playbook that they could go apply in different markets. So that's just an example of kind of something that's really unique to that brand that wasn't copy and paste.
I notice sometimes you can, as I don't know if you're the shopper in your household, but it's kind of hard when you are in this category and you do go grocery shopping and you are walking down the aisles and you're going, okay, well, that person this brand over here is copying this and worked really great for them. And it hurts my heart sometimes because, the people are trying we're talking about these younger brands, the more sophisticated brands. They've got a playbook, they've got the expertise, but it's these younger brands specifically that are going, well, that worked for Kind, or that worked for Vibe, or that worked for insert brand here. So I'm going to copy their design language. I'm going to copy their go-to-market strategy. And then I think they start to lose a little bit of who they are, because they start co-opting other strategies because they saw it was successful. And then they start to get confused about who they were and why they started and what their product or service was all about. Have you seen that yourself with some of the conversations, or?
100%. I think you're so right. And you see things from your vantage point because you see so many brands that you see them all kind of look the same. And we also see a ton of brands. So we start to see a lot that look the same. And really, I like to ask always kind of what makes you unique and why are you going to get off the shelf? I think a lot of brands get really excited when they get on the shelf and they get those distribution wins. And you've got to get on the shelf. That's kind of table stakes. But how are you going to get off the shelf and be differentiated against other people next to you?
When we're talking about those entrepreneurs now, I'm going to kind of separate them. There are the serial entrepreneurs, the ex-Coca-Cola person that comes in and's had a great idea, understands the marketplace, they're building a plan. And then you've got the homegrown Hatchery style entrepreneur that has a really great idea, does not even have the faintest idea that it was marketable and is learning it on the fly. Are there key differences in those communications when you're seeing those investment opportunities? I don't know, enjoy is kind of the wrong way to look at it, but is there one group that seems to be a little bit more coachable and the opportunities tend to be a little bit stronger, or is it just pretty equal?
It's pretty equal. I don't think that we don't discriminate against entrepreneurs.
Oh, no.
All different backgrounds. And I think, yeah, the serial entrepreneurs definitely come with their certain level of expertise.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not as objective, because they're going to take, they might take whatever they were doing before and just apply it to whatever they're doing now.
Gotcha. Okay.
And the homegrown entrepreneur can say, oh no, I have this germ of an idea and I'm going to do things differently because I look at the category and everyone looks the same, and I think I have something truly differentiated. So I think everyone comes with their own perspective, and I think it's so important for brands to all come with their own perspective. And I think it's about how you put your other resources around you that makes your company shine. So, homegrown entrepreneur doesn't have to have everything figured out. They don't have to have the expertise that a serial entrepreneur does, but can they go find some mentors or outsource advisors, or who else can they put around them to kind of shore up their capabilities and accelerate their growth? So I'd encourage kind of all entrepreneurs to look for putting resources around them I think they're weakest. But no, I love both. I love talking to, those who've done it before and those who haven't done it at all.
Yeah. Well, and that's why you have those incubators like the Hatchery. And I wish I actually want to start building a network of my own of these incubators, because we talk to we brands all the time. They're reaching out to us. They need a package. They're just starting out. We're not the right fit for them, but I have a space in my heart for them. And I want to go, okay, there's so much that I cannot help you with. But if you go to one of these places, they'll set you up with mentorship and they'll take you through the training and help you turn your idea into something. I love that I'm seeing more and more of those.
Yeah, accelerators are such great kind of communities to build a whole ecosystem. I completely agree. And we have some, great accelerators out there that all brands should kind of go explore. There are ones that are very focused on CPG. There are ones that are, very focused on sustainability. There are others, they're so targeted right now that I think you can find the right fit for your brand for sure. There's the Good Food Accelerator in Chicago. There's the Hatchery. There's Relish Works. There's Y Combinator. There's SLC. Target has an accelerator. There's so many opportunities that I think that's such a great way to kind of accelerate your brand for sure.
Well, along that line now, this is kind of, for me, it's a tricky topic. I started the podcast, this Gooder podcast, as kind of a visibility platform, and really wanting to raise the visibility of women in leadership in the CPG space.
Love that.
And as I've been growing it, one of the biggest outages that I've seen is this diversity. The diversity in our industry in leadership specifically is lacking. And so creating those opportunities for BIPOC and LGBTQ and disabled leaders, people we are not seeing traditionally in the naturals industry specifically. And part of that is that, without the visibility, people don't have anything to look for. And so I think in investment, there's a little bit of that going on as well. If all of these people don't know about how to find investment, or how investment works, because they're a startup or they come from a community that traditionally hasn't had access to either the education or anything like that. I wonder what is happening in your world, what's happening in investment. And we're seeing some of that with the Potluck Network is coming together. But what's happening in your community? And maybe you can even talk about Bluestein further in being able to outreach to these communities that traditionally haven't had visibility.
Absolutely. First of all, I love that you're doing this, and I love that you're elevating the voices. I think that's so important, because if you can't see it, you can't be it. And so I just think it's incredible that the community is kind of coming together and starting to elevate that. And you're doing an awesome job in your world. So, absolutely, this year has been an awakening for everyone. And I I want to raise women, underrepresented communities. I want to raise voices and increase kind of the pipeline there. And so we are definitely thinking deeply about this internally.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are a couple ways that we started to think about it. First, for us, since we're very analytical and metric focused, of course,
put your superpower hat on and figure out how to go from there. Yeah.
So, we thought, well, we can't improve what we don't measure. So we went back and looked at how we were performing. And over our portfolio, I mean, we're not terrible. We're 30% of our companies have female founders and 30% underrepresented founders. So, that's not, awful, but we can do better. And so we certainly want to increase that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the last 3 deals we've done have all had founders from underrepresented communities. So, we're really happy about that and proud. But we want to make sure that we have really first and foremost the widest funnel possible at the top.
Okay.
Because we know, our track record, the last 3 deals, we know that if we screen them, they'll make it through the funnel and the pipeline. So
yes.
So we're thinking about how do we kind of widen the funnel and make sure that we're welcoming to all founders and that we're proactively going to source them instead of kind of just waiting for them to come to us.
Okay.
And so we also just started a pilot program of monthly office hours targeted to founders of underrepresented communities. So if you know anyone who's interested, it's on my LinkedIn page. We have a calendar that's public, and once a month we are going to have office hours, and anyone who wants to chat with us and about if they want advice, if they want investment, I mean, whatever, we're open. So, feel free to sign up on my calendar page.
Okay.
We're always looking to do better. So I encourage anyone to send us ideas or feedback on how to take initiatives forward.
Okay. So when you say you are actively seeking out, then are you, does that mean that you're going different places to look for people, or you're asking your network different questions, or what? I'm just curious how that's manifesting.
Yeah, we're trying to broaden our co-investor network and investor
Okay.
So that we can increase our deal funnel.
Okay.
We have our investors that we are already networked in with, and other accelerators that we're already kind of networked in with, but trying to broaden that funnel as much as possible and explore different avenues that we haven't connected with before.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for answering that question. And, it's so funny. I asked these questions because I had a great conversation with Kimberly Lee Miner, and we were talking about culture change within organizations. And she's a cultural change manager. And one of the things that she said is like underrepresented communities don't have the power to make the changes, Diana. She's like, you're white. You have the power. So she goes, you need to use your network. You need to use your voice to create those opportunities. So I'm now like, okay, now I'm going to be the one asking the questions to the people that hold the power, as part of this. So thank you for answering that question. I appreciate it.
And we're just thinking through this now, and open to any ideas or feedback. So please reach out to me.
Yeah.
And give me any thoughts you have.
Of course. So as we're kind of home stretching this here, we've talked about business from all perspectives, but I'm curious what keeps you excited and energized about doing what you do.
What keeps me energized is entrepreneurs. I mean,
really?
The passion for their business, it gets me excited. It gets me energized. I get to see so much innovation from my vantage point that I love it. And if I can help entrepreneurs achieve their goals, that is just like the most energizing thing that I can think of. So
they come with their own little stockpile of energy, right? They're so passionate.
Yep. And if you feel like you can kind of help them on their journey like that, whether we invest or not, if I can help them on the journey, that just gives, selfishly, it gives me satisfaction. And I hope it helps, the entrepreneurs themselves. But,
gotcha.
You want to, if someone wants to achieve something big and great, you want to help them do that.
Yeah. Well, just a couple more questions here before we wrap up. One of the things that I like to ask is, what are you excited about? What are you seeing out in the marketplace that has you interested and has your eyeball on? And this could be product, this could be service, this could even just be in the investment community. I'm just curious, what are you excited about? What are you watching right now?
So what am I excited about? I think I'm excited about a couple of areas in the space we invest in.
Okay.
One of those is kind of personalization. I think
Okay.
that's just such an exciting opportunity, and that we're finally getting the science and the data to kind of align to enable brands to really personalize to consumers. So I want to see more in that area.
Okay.
And then the other place that I think is really exciting is just thinking broadly around alternative protein. So
Okay.
I think that there's been such historically, the products that have come out in alternative protein have been so inferior to typical traditional protein like
Yes.
meat, seafood, dairy, that now that we're seeing such innovation, that the taste and the texture is there, that there really is little trade-off for the consumer to go with a plant-based product versus a traditional product. I think that's kind of exciting and opening up new worlds, because I don't think why would you choose to harm an animal or consume an animal product if you could get the exact same product without? So those are two places that, we're keeping our eye on.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
And
What about
then,
you? What's exciting you?
oh my gosh, what's exciting me? I know this sounds really crazy. I continue to be surprised about RTD just in general. Every time I think, yeah, what else can be created? A whole new something comes out. So like sparkling coffee, like never in my life would I have thought that that was a thing. And of course that's a thing. And at one point I used to laugh at myself. I think about 5 years ago, I was like, somebody needs to come out with a coffee and tea mashup. And sure enough, there's a coffee and tea mashup. And it just, RTD is, so I watch that space quite a bit, but for me, I think the thing that I am keeping my eyeball on is two things. One is the environment, anything that can reduce the footprint of manufacturing, whether it's creating multiple locations, co-mans across the country, sharing shared resources rather than centralized distribution, kind of removing all of that type of thing, being able to down to packaging, shortening the lead time on manufacturing, all of that kind of stuff. Everything that can kind of reduce an environmental footprint is, for me, I think the big challenge. And then I think that's what I'm watching. And I would love to find a way to reduce the amount of food waste. It's heavy in my heart how much product is thrown away before it even enters the food chain. And then to know that people are hungry is a challenge for me too. And that might be something that's not a CPG type of thing, that be more of a societal thing, but I'm looking at both of those.
Yeah, we actually, on the food tech side, we're investors in a company called Mori, which takes silk protein and coats perishables to extend shelf life. And so we're really excited about their potential, and really thinking deeply also, I mean, for sure on the kind of tech side, how do you increase sustainability and lower your kind of environmental footprint, for sure.
Yeah. Just, if we're throwing away 30% of product before it gets used, just think of all of the energy that goes into growing those products, even that alone, right? So, and it's because people want the perfect apple to end up on, it's all of those kind of crazy. So anyways, much bigger picture than just like, than RTD.
Oh yeah, we could talk all day about other theses and around sustainability, for sure.
For sure. How are you keeping yourself sane these days? You're on Zoom all day long. You're in your place. Like, what are you doing to take time for yourself?
So I have found over the past year that as long as I can be outside for a little bit during the day, that keeps me sane. So
Okay.
I take a lot of walks. I start the day, very early morning walks outside. So I try to do that. That's my one thing I have to do every day, along with try to get in a lot of yoga and a lot of reading.
Okay. Oh, reading. Okay. And I think before we go, which I've just really enjoyed our time together, how do you want people to connect with you? Is LinkedIn the best way, or do you have an email address? What's your preferred method?
Yeah, feel free to connect on LinkedIn, and then you
Okay.
can also email me anytime. My email is Ashley, Ashley, at bluesteinventures.com.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you had a little fun and little break from your day from doing, well, I guess it's probably more Zoom time, but I've really enjoyed our time together.
Oh, I loved talking to you. We could do this more often. This is great.
This episode is sponsored by Retail Voodoo, a creative marketing firm specializing in growing, fixing, and reinventing brands in the food, beverage, wellness, and fitness industries. If your naturals brand is in need of positioning, package design, or marketing activation, we're here to help. You can find more information at retail-voodoo.com. And so there you go. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to this channel and share with your network. Until next time, be well and do gooder.